I la 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 bam 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 bam. Okay, so we continue with the topic of not talking Lashon Hara against Am Yisrael. Maybe we should ban all the newspapers, all the Israeli newspapers.
The Israeli newspapers, yes, but not the Arab ones.
Yeah.
I love reading the Arab newspapers. I'm the occupiers. I own the world. I own the banks. You know, it gives you a lift.
Yeah.
You read the Israeli newspapers, they were killers, were murderers.
Reish Ein Ches. Daf Reish Ein Chet. אז בהירות מדבר לשון הרע על עם ישראל. So you know, I'll tell you a couple of Lashon Hara stories. You maybe heard it at Shalashudis once. One story is like this. Chofetz Chaim used to travel around to sell his Sfarim, the Mishnah Brura. It wasn't like, like today you can distribute books like so easily, right? And on top of that, he had one daughter only, and he wouldn't sell a single copy without proofreading each one, because the printing presses in those days were not so perfect. And since it's a halacha sefer, it's possible for a word to jump out from one page and be on another page. Anyway, anybody, and they would write inside Memvav Gimel apostrophe for Muga, means it's been proofread. If you ever see one of those, they're worth thousands of dollars. See, he and his wife and his daughter used to proofread them. Can you imagine what kind of Talmidei Chachama his daughter was, right? Anyway, so one day he's already an older man. He's on his way back to his hometown, to Radin. And this Yid is sitting opposite him. For those of you who don't, were you ever on a train? Were you ever on a train?
I was on the...
yeah. Now, saying the old trains, remember that you could turn the seats around, you can have two seats facing each other.
That was before my time.
Yeah. I used to take the train from Montreal to Toronto, and Toronto, Montreal. Anyway, so the old Chofetz Chaim is sitting there, and there's an elderly Yid sitting opposite him. They get into a conversation. The Chofetz Chaim says, so where are you going? So he says, he's going to Ratten. So he says, why? So he says, he's going to see the Tzaddik Hador, the holiest man of the generation. Chofetz Chaim says, wow, I live in Ratten. I didn't know that the Tzaddik Hador lives in Ratten. Who is it? So he says, surprised at you, Reb Yisrael Meir HaKoyen. So that was him, right? So he says, he's the Tzaddik Hador? I know him. He's not the Tzaddik Hador. So this guy gets up and smacks him across the face. Right. You shaggets, how dare you talk like that about the Tzaddik Hador? You know the story? No? So Chofetz Chaim didn't say anything. The next day, the man comes to his house, and he sees who it is that he smacked. So he falls down in front of him, he starts crying, begging for mechila. The Chofetz Chaim says, you don't need mechila. He says, no, I need mechila. He said, no, you don't need mechila. In fact, you taught me an important lesson. He says, I taught you a lesson. What did I teach you? You taught me that you shouldn't speak Lashon Hara even against yourself. Another story that when I was teaching in a school in Montreal, so we were having a parents-teachers meeting. And one of the parents comes in, and she was working in the Jewish Family Services in the Youth Protection Division. And my friend, Joel Moss, was the head of that division. And she says to me, and she knew we were friends, and she says, you know, your friend is driving us crazy. So I said, what do you mean? She says, he's on this thing about Lashon Hara, and whenever we're in a meeting, if somebody says something that he considers to be Lashon Hara, he says, that's Lashon Hara, you can't talk like that. And either he'll walk out of the meeting, or he'll kick somebody out. Now, I knew that my friend was learning, at that time he was learning Shmirat HaLashon from the Chafetz Chaim, all the halachas about Lashon Hara. So I didn't say anything. And she says, we're social workers. What do you expect us to talk about? Didn't say anything. 3 months later was the next parents-teachers meeting, and she comes in and she says, Shalom. And the whole atmosphere in the office has changed. And I said, how so? She says, we've learned to talk totally differently. We talk about, we say what we need to say, and we don't just yente anymore with Lashon Hara. And she says, it's changed the whole atmosphere in the office. You know, it's the power of speech is just so amazing. And if you're careful, sometimes people say, oh, I'm looking for a real spiritual experience. For starters, make sure that you don't talk Lashon Hara, and you don't listen to Lashon Hara, and you are careful about how you talk, because talk is, hello everybody on Facebook. There are people that you see who joined, you know. And if you're careful with the way you speak, speech is your most divine gift in a certain sense. Like when Hashem creates Adam, it says, Vayipach, Ba'apav, and I don't remember the words exactly, he breathed into his nostrils a soul of life, Nishmat Chayim. And the Targum Onkelos says, what's Nishmat Chayim, what's the soul of life? Targum Onkelos translates it, Ruach Memawela, a soul, a spirit that speaks. Human beings are different from all other creatures in that we speak. Sure, all other creatures also have ways of communication, but their speech is totally different. We can tell stories, we can talk good things, we can say good things, we can also, chas v'shalom, say negative things. So if you're careful and conscious of how you speak, for sure not to use words that are not appropriate. And the way you speak to someone, and the tone of voice, and what you say, and focus on the positive, and so on, it will change your whole being. Okay, so we're at the bottom of page V'Zayin Chet. הזהירות מלדבר לשון הרע על עם ישראל. To be careful not to speak Lashon Hara against the Jewish people. מסופר בדברי חז"ל, it's told in the words of the Chachamim, שבהיותם במצרים היו בני ישראל שקועים במ"ט שערי טומאה. That when the Jews were in Mitzrayim, it says that we were sunk down to the 49th level of impurity.
Ko'im means sunk?
Shkuim.
Shkuim means sunk.
Yeah. ועד כדי כך, so much so, שגם לאחרי שיצאו ממצרים, that even after we came out of Mitzrayim, ועמדו על שפת הים, and they were at the edge of the water of the sea, טענו המקטרגים, so the accusatory angels in Shemayim were arguing, halalu of the Avodah Zarah, these people, the Egyptians, are worshipping idols. V'halalu of the avodah zarah. And among the Jews, there were also those who were doing avodah zarah. V'afal pikein, and nevertheless, lo amar lehem Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, answer the angels. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go and say, Du'u lachem, he didn't go to the Yidden and say to them, She'im lo tativu ma'asechem, that if you're not going to improve your deeds, Yamshich v'yosif paro l'shabed etchem b'avodat farech, that Paro is going to come and continue to enslave you. Moshe Rabbeinu lo iyem aleihem, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't threaten them, Rachman al-Itzlan, heaven forfend, Rachman al-Itzlan, b'tzarot nosafot, he didn't threaten the Jews with additional sorrows. Ela nitztava al-idei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but rather he was commanded by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ko tamar el b'nei Yisrael, this is what you should say to the Yidden, Hashem Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, Shlachani Alechem, Hashem, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, the God of Yaakov, sent me to you, Le'mor, to tell you, Pakadeti etchem, I surely remember you, V'ta'asui lachem b'Mitzrayim, and what's happening to you in Egypt, Va'omar, and I've decided, A'aleh etchem yoni Mitzrayim, I'm taking you out of the poverty of Egypt, the suffering of Egypt, rather, El Eretz Zavat Chalav, to a land flowing, Chalav Udvash, a land flowing with milk and honey. The Chol Lerosh, the first thing that he says to them is, Hiskir Lahem Zchut Avot. The first thing is, he reminded them the merit of their ancestors, of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Amar lahem, and he told them, Shakadosh Baruch Hu ra'a et anyam v'go'el otam, that Hashem has seen their suffering and he's redeeming them. Right?
That's a powerful way of reprimanding him, isn't it?
Of reprimanding whom? Well, you were here the other day. Remember, I told you about the Sefer Chobat HaTalmidim from the p.8, and that the p.8 says basically, you gotta change your consciousness. You gotta be in the consciousness that you are B'nai Melachim, that you are B'nai Nevi'im. You're royalty. You're not just anybody. Okay? Right? If you're conscious of who you are, then naturally you're going to be operating on a different level, right? Yetera mizo, and more than that, but you're right, that's the highest Muslim. It's to make a person aware of how special they are. Okay?
And then you go for that. How can you behave that way if you?
No, then you don't have to say anything. This is what we learned about Aaron the Kohen. Right this week is Parshas Korach. If you remember, we learned it in one of the Reb Shlomo's forum. He says, "What's the difference between Korach and Aaron?" Korach was, besides what happened in this week's Parshas, that whole rebellion. Okay, but besides that, before that, Korach was this holy man. Remember, Korach was one of the people who carried the Aron HaKodesh, right? So the way Reb Shlomo describes Korach is so holy, he's walking in the street with two gaboim, so that he could walk around with closed eyes, so that he shouldn't chas v'sholem see anything negative. And Aaron HaKohen is out there in the street. Hey, Chaim, how you doing? Oh yeah, I just had a fight with my partner, you know. Chanala, how you doing? Oh, we had such a fight at home. And what would Aaron HaKohen do? He was Oyev Shalom, he was right of Shalom, he loved peace and he pursued peace, right? Oyev et Habriyot, and he loved the people, and when we karvam la Torah, and he brought them close to the Torah. So Reb Shlomo explains, a Yid's coming to Aaron HaKohen with an animal. He's bringing a korban chatos, a sin offering. So what does he have to do? He has to do a vidu, he has to do confession, right? So Reb Shlomo says, you think Aaron HaKohen was telling him, oh, you look at you, you're so bad, you did this, you did that, you got to really fix yourself and so on? No. Shalosh Shina. He didn't try to change the person, but rather he put him back in touch with his essence. And when he put him back in touch with his essence, the person on his own already realized what he needs to do. Okay? So the Meforshim say, how did Aaron HaKohen make peace between people? The same way. He would go to each one and he would tell each one, your friend is so sorry that they had an argument with you, your husband is so sorry that he raised his voice, etc. And he'd go to both and he'd do the same. So what's the chachma there? It sounds like a kindergarten teacher's manual, right? What's the chachma? The chachma was that he put people back into in touch with their essence, that the mamish really felt terrible, that how could I have done this? When you're in touch with your neshama, and you say like, what was this all about? Why did I scream? Why did I get angry? Why did I do this? It's just, this is not me. Right? So you see, and this is a lesson from Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem sending Moshe Rabbeinu and tell the Eden, I remember, I'm the God of Avram, of Yitzchak, Yaakov. Hashem is telling them, go tell them there about the Zchut Avot, about the merit of their ancestors. Right? Tell them that I see their suffering. Tell them, in other words, when somebody comes in and starts talking Lashon Hara, besides the fact that you should tell them right away, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear that. That the person, for some reason or other, is suffering, is hurting, and so on, right? So, how can you help this person not to hurt someone? That he should, how can you get to this person to a place where he shouldn't want to speak Lashon Hara, right? So the thing is to put him back in touch with who he really is. Okay? Even more than that. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, Lo livnei Yisrael asmam, and it wasn't to the Yidden themselves. When he said something that was not appropriate not nice about the Jews. When he said, Ve'ein lo ya'aminu, that they're not going to believe me. This is at the burning bush. So what could they be katrega leim chas v'shalom v'chas v'shalom? Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say that in order to make an accusation against the Yidden. Ela, the to'elet shlichuto ligolet b'nei Yisrael. He was concerned about, he's saying, you're sending me on this mission. I want it to be successful. So what am I going to do if they're not going to believe me? Right? So what he wanted was, I'm reading the brackets, he wanted that Hashem should give him a sign that he would be able to show to the Jews so that they'll believe him that their time of redemption had come. So Hashem answered him and he said to him, what's in your hand? And he said, it's a staff. So the Medrash says, from that, they're reading now, instead of mazeh, they're reading mizeh. From this thing that you have in your hand, you should be getting lashes. Because you're speaking Lashon Hara against the Yidden. Hey maminim b'nei maminim. Yidden are believers, descendants of believers. And he gave him a sign that this was the case. How? By the stick turning into a serpent. So what did he show him? Hashem showed him that he spoke Lashon Hara and that he took up the the talents of the serpent, right? The serpent is the one who spoke Lashon Hara in Gan Eden. And he mamish was immediately punished. The Gemara says, somebody who suspects people who are righteous gets punished. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu said they're not going to believe me. And then it says, put your hand onto your chest, right, and take it out. And what happened? It was tzarat. It was leprous. And the Torah writes all this clearly. Now the Rebbe is getting into asking a question. Well, if it's Lashon Hara, why is the Torah telling us that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke Lashon Hara? Right? So the Torah writes all this. Even though generally the Torah does not speak about anything shameful of the Jews, but still, but in order to teach us how much a person should be careful, not to speak Lashon Hara against the Yidden. So therefore, the Torah has to tell us the story. Comments?
These simonim that Hashem gave to Moshe about the statue, about the leprosy, the Egyptians were able to duplicate it. So what kind of simonim were these?
First of all, these were simonim that he showed to the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
This is not later on with Aaron's staff. So when Aaron threw his staff down and turned into a serpent, so the Egyptians were able to do it too. But then everything turned back into sticks, and his sticks swallowed their sticks.
And the Egyptians couldn't duplicate them.
אותה שעה דיבר משה שלא כהוגן. So at that moment, Moshe Rabbeinu had spoken improperly. So in other words, why is the Torah telling this to us? ויש לומר שהסיבה לכך שאותה שעה דיבר משה שלא כהוגן, you can say that the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke improperly at that moment, hu ach v'rak le'orot derech tshuva, was really for the purpose of teaching us how to do tshuva. And in the footnote, basically says that, the Gemara says that David HaMelech was not some character that that it sounds that you wouldn't be surprised that he did the avera that he did. He was a tzaddik. This was not for him to do such an avera, but Hashem orchestrated it so that David HaMelech would teach everybody how to do tshuva. Okay. In other words, if somebody comes before Hashem and Hashem says, "Why did you do this or that?" and the person says, "I don't feel like I had any real free choice. I wasn't able to do tshuva." So Hashem is going to say, David HaMelech did tshuva, you were also able to do tshuva.
We used to say when we were younger, the devil made me do it.
The devil made me do it, yeah. Now, you also have one of the 6 things that we're supposed to remember every day. Zocher es asher asa Hashem alekecha leMiriam b'derech b'tzeitcha mitzrayim. Remember what Hashem did to Miriam, right? She got leprosy because she spoke Lashon Hara. So Miriam was a Neviah. She was a prophetess. She was a tzaddikus. She saved Moshe Rabbeinu's life. It was because of her that Moshe Rabbeinu was even born, right? So it was also not for her to speak tshuva, to speak Lashon Hara. Elamai, she did, and she wasn't even talking publicly. She spoke to Aaron. and her intentions were 100% good. But she also was, like, she wanted everybody to know speaking Lashon Hara is like really, really bad. And it's like a mother, like, tells the child, don't touch the stove, it's hot. Don't touch the stove, it's hot. And the mother sees that the child is about to touch the stove. So she goes and touches it herself and gives a scream, oi! Right? So the child should see it was for real, that it was really boiling hot. And so Miriam went ahead and did this, and this is before the Meraglim went to Eretz Yisrael, so that everybody should see, be careful how you talk. And that's the Rashi right at the beginning of Parshas Shlach. Lama Nispacha Parshas Meraglim, the Parshas Miriam, because they should have taken a lesson to not to speak Lashon Hara. So he's saying over here, Megumas, we're in the second line of the paragraph, Megumas behemshech haktuvim gam hatikun al zeh. So the Torah is also teaching us how to fix the Lashon Hara. What does it say? Vayomer Hashem al Moshe shlach yadcha ve'echos b'znavo. Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, grab the serpent by its tail. Vayehi lemateh, and it turned back into a staff. So how does that teach us to fix our Lashon Hara problem? Shazanav moreh al hashiflut biyoter. The tail, what do you call it in Yiddish? Schwanz. Right? You know Yiddish? Schwanz.
Schwanz.
A Bible, so in other words, that alludes to extreme humility. That's the lowest humility. Like we say every day in davening, at the end of Shemoneh Esrei, we say, "V'nafshi ka'afar v'kol tiyeh." Let my nefesh be like dust to everybody. Jet lag. So you're jet lagged. But what's my excuse?
It's hot.
I'm empathizing.
You know what you've just said?
Yeah.
It's easier said than done. But let my soul be like dust for everybody.
Ah, right. This chassid came to his Rebbe. I don't remember by which Rebbe it was. He says, Rebbe, everybody's stepping on me. So the Rebbe said, if you wouldn't spread yourself out over the entire Besmedrash, they would be able to move around without stepping on you. Right?
I feel like this Torah is something that's very difficult for this, at least my generation, in the sense that there's such an issue with ego, balancing an ego, whether it's healthy or
but
not.
it's not just your generation. I mean, it's in Parshas Vayikra, where it says, "Lo yisei lech rochel ba'amecha," don't be a talebearer, right? Don't speak Lashon Hara. So it follows after the mitzvahs of I yawned twice and I don't remember things by heart. So it says like this. It says, Lo tasu aval b'mishpat, don't do any injustice in judgment. Lo tisa pnei dal v'lo te'edar pnei gadol. The judge should be careful not to show any favoritism neither to the underdog, to the poor one, or to the rich one. B'tzedek tishpot amitecha, you should judge your people righteously. Okay? And then the next pasuk says, Lo telech achid ba'amecha, don't go and speak Lashon Hara. So I think it's Reb Shimshon Raphael Hirsch points out, what has one pasuk got to do with the next? So Reuben went to court with Shimon. And the judges ruled that Shimon was actually right. But Reuben he feels that he was wronged. So what does he go do now? So now he goes and starts to talk to Lashon. What does he feel like doing? He's going to go and talk to Lashon Hara. Understand? I couldn't beat you in court, but I can talk to Lashon Hara, right? So that's why the Torah is warning. That's the connection between, that when the judges make a judgment, you don't go speaking Lashon Hara afterwards, right? So this is exactly what you're saying, right? It's our ego that feels like I got to put somebody else down, right? And in fact, in the Tanya, and I'm trying to be careful the way I say this, so that not to speak Lashon Hara against anybody or even myself, but sometimes it happens. The person goes to shul and basically finds his perch, so to speak. Not really davening, he's going tweet, and he's looking around to see who else is going tweet. And then when you see somebody else is going tweet, well, and especially if it's a person who learns or a person who's an important person, so what do you say to yourself? I'm better than him, right? We find all kinds of ways to think that we're better than somebody else. It's like, what do you call it? It's like when davening is over and there are people that that the chassan didn't even finish Aleinu yet. They're already sitting by the Kiddush table, right? I'm not talking, I don't mean Lashon Hara over here, right? But I want to make sure that in case there's going to be a piece of kishke there in the children, that I'm going to get it, right? Why don't you make sure that you can take it and give it to somebody else? Because I'm better than everybody else. I deserve, entitled. In this respect, you're right. This generation feels I'm entitled. I'm entitled. We've spoken about this.
Too.
My father, only the Shalom, lived through 2 world wars. Was a bigger Talmid Chacham than most rabbis in America. Worked hard all his life. He was orphaned at an early age, and when the Second World War came around, he was already married. He had 4 children. He had a business that was doing nicely, and so I can't even imagine it. But what it was like. But he's sitting by the Shabbos table one Shabbos with his family, right? And then the next Shabbos, he's working in a stable in Siberia, shoveling horse manure, and not even knowing what's happening back in Poland. And then he survived the war, but his wife and children didn't, and he comes out of the war, and we have one picture, looks like a skeleton with skin on top, and he got married again, Baruch Hashem, and restarted his life. But the first 2 years before, he was able to make things better. The first 2 years he worked as a janitor. And when some young people over here, come and they're not working. Why aren't you working? Oh, well, I could have had this job, but it's not for me. What? So you'd rather go and schnorr, Chas v'sholem? What means not for you? You can't clean houses? My father was a bigger Talmid Chacham. You can clean houses also. If that's, have some dignity. Have some dignity for yourself, And but people today feel entitled, People today feel that, this guy told me that he was, he's a top drummer. So somebody this is back in Montreal, so they're one of the people there, like, they had a little music chavusi. And this guy came from a very wealthy family, this other guy. So my friend, the drummer, says to him, he says, you know what's your problem? Your problem is you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. And he says, no, you're wrong, a gold spoon. And sometimes you think that, that oh, this person is lucky that, they grew up in all this wealth and so on. For some people, that's not a blessing at all. Because when things get tough, they're in trouble. They say that Boulder, Colorado, is the trust fund capital of the U.S. You know what trust funds are? There are people that their grandparents left them a lot of money. It's a trust called the trust fund, and arbeit nichts, they don't work. And I see these people, I meet a lot of them, and the ones who are like already in their 50s and so on, they're living in a panic. I don't mean it in a positive way. They're afraid that somebody's going to come and talk them into some kind of deal that they're going to be cheated out of their money, and they have no idea how they will support themselves. They never learned how to go out and work. So what's the größte Gedelle? My father used to say, this is in Yiddish. Hat Chassene gemacht das Schiddach mit a Schmalzgrieb.
The Schmalz,
A Schmalzgrieb. The Schmalz ist ausgerinnen und sie geblieben der Grieb.
That's one way of looking at it.
Okay. We'll translate it later, but that's not for now. Anyway, understand? So Baal Shem Tov said, put a little coin in front of your eye and you can't see the sun. The sun is so much bigger, right? But even a little coin can blind you. Right? So it's good to have money. It's good to be able to pay your bills. It's good to be able to give tzedakah, etc., but you got to have it. You got to have the perspective. Understand? And loyalenu, like I once was in somebody's bathroom and they had a thing hanging. If you're so smart, why ain't you rich? Like, who do you think you are,
I'm rich right now. One day I'll have money.
Actually, Judy has told me very often that in her mother's family and also her father's family back in Europe, they used to say, we don't have money, but we're not poor. You can have money and be poor,
yes.
And you can and you can not have money and not be poor. Reb Shlomo used to say that the world thinks that a stingy person is a person who has money, but he can't share it. So Shlomo says that's not the truth. The truth is, a stingy person is stingy because the money that he has, he doesn't really own it. Now that's a mind bender.
What does it mean?
What does it mean? So he said that if you really own your money, you can give it away and it's still yours. In other words, if it's really yours, you're able to do whatever you want with it, including giving it away. If you can't give any of it away, it means that you don't really own it. This is the balabus. So once it came to me, I think a year ago or whatever, right? You daven, and we say, Hashem, you open your hand and you provide everybody with what they need, right? It's actually a very difficult pasuk to translate. Masbia l'chol chai rotzon. Now, another way of reading the pasuk, flipping it around, David HaMelech is saying, Poteach et yadecha, open your hand. Okay? In other words, you're davening to God to give you something, open your hand. And when Hashem gives you what you ask for, don't shut your hand. In other words, keep it open, be ready to share. You know why? Because when Hashem puts into your hand what you were asking for, and if you close it, all you got is the object that you were asking for. And what Hashem is really giving you, is Hashem is giving you what you asked for, and He's also giving you the ratzon, the will, the desire to share. But if I close my hand, I don't get the ratzon. I don't get the will. I only get the thing. And then I don't really own it completely. If you really own it completely, that means you want to use that and do all the best that you could do with this. If you can't, once the Alter Rebbe and the Reb Levi Yitzchak Berditchever and Reb Yever, they were in a certain town, and
the last one?
Reb Yever. Since you heard from him, he was also from that group. And what happened there was a tragedy. There were two orphans who were supposed to get married that day. And the poorest in town received a notice that the inspectors from the Tsar are coming because they suspected that he wasn't handing over all the tax money that he was supposed to hand over to them. And he knew that when they show up tomorrow, he had taken 10,000 rubles for himself. So where's he going to get 10,000 rubles? He already drank it up. So he went ahead and he knew that this orphan was getting married today. So he goes and arrests the chosin. You know the story? And he tells the Jewish community 10,000 rubles. Where are they going to get 10,000 rubles? Anyway, so I said, Dr. Rebbe, the Balatanya, Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Yever, they were there. Dr. Rebbe says to the leaders of the community, make us a list of all the people in town that we should go, and we're going to go collect the money. But make sure that everybody's on the list. So they made him a list. Dr. Rebbe looks at the list, he says, is everybody on the list? So they say, yeah. He says, you sure you didn't leave anybody out? So they say, yeah, well, there's one Yid, he's like a real miser, a kamsi, and he hasn't given a penny to tzedakah in 30 years, and he has this old copper coin that's already is green, and whenever anybody comes and asks him for money, he gives them that coin, and everybody just throws it back at him. The Alter Rebbe says, put him on the list. So they put him on the list. They go to this man's house, knock on his door, he opens up, he sees 3 Rebbes, 3 tzaddikim, Wow, what an honor, come on in. And they come in. And before they went in, the Alter Rebbe made Reb Levi Yitzchak and Rabbi Yever promise that they're not going to say a word, no matter what's going to happen. He says, otherwise you're not coming in with me. Anyway, they promised him. So they go in and they tell him that they need to collect money to ransom the chosin. And he says, oh, I'm so thankful that you came to me, that you think I could be of help. How much money do you need? He said, we need 10,000 rubles. So he says, well, thank you so much for inviting me to participate. And he takes out that old copper coin that's green. He gives it to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe says, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much." And he says, "Reb Levi Yitzchak, Reb Levi, okay, let's go." Reb Levi Yitzchak and Reb Levi are like shocked. Okay, but they promised they weren't going to say anything. They go out. They walk a few steps, and the man opens the door and he says, "Oh, please, please, please come back in." He says, "I was thinking about it. I'd like to give you some more." And he takes out another penny. And Dr. Rebbe thanks him thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's such a big mitzvah. And again they leave. They walk a few more steps. And again he comes running. He says, "Please, please do me a favor. Come back in. I want to give you some more money." And this time he gives them a ruble. Dr. Rebbe thanks him. "Awesome, amazing, thank you so much." And they turn and they leave. And he comes running after them. And this time he's got tears in his eyes. He says, "Please come back in." You come back in. "How much money do you need?" 10,000 rubles. He says, "Is it okay if I give you the whole thing?" "Sure." And Mamish gave them 10,000 rubles. We're almost at the end. And they thank him and they leave. And Reb Levi Yitzchak and Reb Yever say to the Alter Rebbe, "What did you do here? Was this some kind of a moifus, like some kind of a miracle that you performed?" Alter Rebbe says, "No. I'll tell you what it is. This man is a wealthy man, a wealthy businessman. But even a wealthy businessman, it can happen that there could be one day that the mamish have nothing. And it happened one day, there was some kind of a bad deal, and this guy, he mamish didn't have any money. The only money he had in his house was that one copper coin. And a poor man came and he gave away his last penny. And the poor man was so upset, he took it and threw it back in his face and said a few not nice words, maybe also. And this man decided he's not giving any more tzedakah until somebody is going to thank him for this coin. Until someone's going to thank him for this coin. And he says, for years, every time he gave somebody this coin, they threw it back in his face, and it just closed his heart even more, and closed his heart even more, closed his heart even more. All he needed was somebody to say thank you. And we said thank you, and we said thank you, and we said thank you. Each time his heart opened up, mamish, all the stuff that he didn't give all these years, he now finally gave it. So you can imagine it was like a beautiful wedding. It was under the foot of the bridge of the town. And who was the biggest Baal Simcha? The miser. In the meantime, the continuation of the story is, which is really not important at all, but everybody likes to have a good ending. So the perpetuates is sitting there with 10,000 rubles, and he thinks to himself, so tomorrow they're going to come and they're going to take it away from me. So what do I need them to take it away from me for? He gets into his horse and wagon, and he decides, goodbye. And he rides out to the bridge, and coming against him is some other poets. There's only room for one wagon on the bridge. And he tells the other guy, get off, make space for me. The other guy says, no. Anyway, they have a big fight, and it ends up that the box with all the money falls over the side of the bridge. The Porus was killed, he fell into the river, and all that money falls down there right in front of the Chassan and the Kale. And it was decided to give it to the Chassan and the Kale. They should be able to start their life and have a good life. Okay, like I said, I don't know if that's the rest of the story or not. It's not. That's not the relevant. That's not the relevant part of the story. The relevant part of the story is when somebody does something for you, no matter how small it is. Instead of looking at you couldn't do better, focus and say thank you. This is so beautiful that you did this. I appreciate it so much. I have to, Baruch Hashem, we pay our teachers, etc., right? So it costs money to have a yeshiva. It's not like a money-making business, So I travel around and do the Shabbatons and tried. So I was told that a relative of mine used to go around collecting money for the poor, not for himself. He didn't need anything. And he used to say that when you're going and collecting money for tzedakah, you have to have two pockets. One for the donations that they give you, and one for the insults.
And for the
insults. And the pocket with the insults has to be bigger. And somebody insults you, you take it, put it in your pocket. V'nafshi ka'ofar lakol tiyeh. Let me be like the dust to everybody. And what's with the dust when it gets stepped on? Did it get damaged? Did it get spoiled? So you stepped on me. But I'm still who I am. Right? So you stepped on me. Okay. So that's, you understand? So the idea of somebody got you upset, you feel like speaking Lashon Hara, you feel like going and telling everybody that this guy's a real creep and so on. Grab onto your schwanz. Remember, go back into humility. And I just remembered another story, and I'll finish with this. One morning in some Beis Medrash, two Jews got into an argument, and one mamish insulted the other guy. And this guy was like mamish ready to get back at him. So the Rebbe, the tzaddik, whoever was there, he says, listen, before you do that, let me tell you something. It says that Hamal bin Pnei Chaver B'Rabim, if you embarrass somebody in public, it's like you murdered them, right? So he says, obviously, if you believe in Hashgacha Pratis, in divine providence, it was obviously decided in heaven that you are deserving of the death penalty. But instead of getting the death penalty in a permanent way, it was given to you by somebody embarrassing you. So you should actually be happy. You just got rid of the death penalty and you're still alive. Right? It's a good one to think about. Like it's Shabbos. Thank you. We're not here this Shabbos, so I can't invite you for Shabbos Shudis. But maybe after Shusdi machen Shabbos Shudis.